Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to our April 13th, 2023 briefing. This is for the meeting, the regular meeting, next Thursday on April the 20th. Today we have no discussion items, so and the county manager will review our agenda in a minute, and we do have closed session this afternoon. So I think we're ready to go, Mr. County Manager, and we'll start with Chris.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. So we'll go ahead and dive into our agenda and finalize this for April 20th meeting. Chris Murphy's up first with a public hearing in consideration of a special use permit. It's zoning docket F-1627.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the County Commissioners. I'm really not going to go over this presentation. We did have the public hearing last time. If you remember, the public hearing was continued based on some folks who stood up in opposition. This being a quasi-judicial hearing, the hearing was held open, and it was requested that the property owner, Mr. Lawson, and or his representative, which was the project engineer, meet with the neighbors. I don't know the exact outcome. I do know that the project engineer did meet with the Luces yesterday on site, both their property and on the subject property. I don't have any other information beyond that, but we will, since the public hearing was held open, we'll have the ability to have additional testimony next Thursday, and then ultimately, if the county commissioners decide, make a decision. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I just have, only maybe a week ago or something, the one person said that they didn't know about that, and I don't know why they didn't. I thought of it about a week ago, about 2 weeks after we were talking about it. You did send letters out.
We did not. The county clerk did, because the item that was before the planning board, it was not a rezoning. As a special use, as a special use permit, the planning board considered the site plan. Then whenever it comes to this body is when it's a quasi-judicial. We can't have a public hearing at the planning board and here, because there would be testimony that the commissioners would not have heard. So there was no notice of the planning board meeting, but the clerk did send out the notices per the notice requirements in the statute for the hearing that we held 2 weeks ago.
It's the same distances.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That one, well, that particular one, wonder if it would have been outside of
the folks that spoke here both got notices.
Okay.
The folks that were here last time, they did get the notice again, but they got it the Saturday before that Thursday meeting. But again, by the time you put it in the mail and it gets to them, you have to mail it no earlier than 25 days before the hearing and no later than 10 days before the hearing. So whenever it was mailed, they probably got it 5 or 6 days before the meeting. Any other questions?
We're good.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chris. All right. Item 2 and 3 are obviously related. They are public hearings on the 4 bond orders entitled Bond Order Authorizing the Issuance of Not to Exceed $22,920,000 General Obligation Bonds. I'm not going to read through all that. I'm just going to turn it over to Lee Plunkett to tell us sort of what we're going to do and structure of what's going to happen next Thursday.
Sure. I'll pull up the presentation you all are familiar with. So, all of the board actions, submissions, publications that you contemplated in the last meeting on March 30th have been approved or completed. And so next Thursday, there'll be a public hearing on 4 bond orders, and those are all tied to the 2/3 general obligation bonds. And the public hearing allows for anyone who wishes to be heard on the questions of validity and then also advisability of the bonds. So then after the meeting, you will then take the bond orders and contemplate those for approval, as well as the approval of the bond resolution. So the 4 bond orders are the 22.92 for schools, 2.3 for Forsyth Tech, 2 for Parks and Rec, and $2 million for just general county capital maintenance. The primary purposes of the bond orders that you would be approving are authorizing the actual issuance of the bonds, so including the amount and the purpose which we just talked about, as stating that the security that is being provided for the bonds is your taxing authority, and then defining when the orders will take effect after their publication. So a day after the 20th, on the 21st, is the clerk will publish those, and then 30 days later they'll become effective, and that way that we can sell the bonds at that point. And then, do you want me to go ahead and hit the bond resolution now, or?
Yeah, that'd be great. And also talk a little bit about what's working in the background around the local government commission and their meeting and approval and all that.
Yeah, I'll hit that for sure. So the bond resolution is the final approval for you as the board before the LGC sells the bonds for the county. It's long, but it essentially lays out all the detail needed to legally sell them. So just as an example, it defines their amounts, type, and purpose, shows what the 2/3 total will be, which is the $29.22 million. And then as a reminder, this is the only action that you as the board will take regarding the 2016 referendum bonds. So those are already been approved. This is just a matter of you saying, yes, you can sell these bonds at this date. And like we've talked about in the funding plan, the par amount was $100 million, and that was the max amount that we could issue based off our modeling without a tax rate impact. But you all have allowed us to increase that amount in the bond resolution to $105 million, just in case the market takes a turn for the better, and we're allowed to issue a little bit more than what we have modeled out. It will not ever impact the tax rate. It's just a matter of getting a little bit of extra flexibility. It also states, when the debt will become due, when we're going to make payments, all the details, transactional details needed for the LGC to sell the bonds for us. And the final piece, it does repeal some lingering authorized but unissued refunding bonds that we will never issue. They were from 2020 and 2021, so it just gets those off the books, so we don't have that anymore. And then allows the county manager and the CFO to execute any documentations to facilitate the sale and the closing. And then this is just the plan that we have in place. Again, you all have seen this before. It's nothing new. And then to Dudley's question, last Thursday on the 30th, we did submit our application to sell the 2/3 bonds to the LGC. And so the actual LGC meeting will take place May 2nd. And so we just got an email right before we walked in that we're still waiting on confirmation that this will be on the consent agenda, but normally our bonds are. You guys have done a great job with all of our policies and AAA rated most of the time, so they'll put it on the consent agenda. So it'll be a pretty quick process. And then May 23rd, we're going to price and sell the bonds. And then June 13th and 14th is when we'll actually receive the bonds. We are working with the schools to pull together a list of those projects and narrow it down to what will be needed by the LGC, and we have a deadline of May 9th for that, so we'll be working closely with them to get those projects in. Any questions?
Questions for Lee?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Lee. All right. So that's the public, well, we've got a couple other matters involving sort of resolutions recognizing April 2023 is Public Health Month in Forsyth County, North Carolina, so there'll be folks present from Public Health to receive that. And then finally, Chris has a resolution designating new review officers to review and certify maps and plats with Forsyth County, North Carolina. So y'all do have to approve the folks who are designated to be able to do that. So got the minutes, which will be
I'm going to get those out tomorrow.
tomorrow, so be looking for those. And so now we've got the regular business items on the agenda. Item 7 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing the execution of interlocal agreements with Rural Hall, Tobaccoville, Walkertown, and then amendment to the budget. I'll turn it over to Kyle to review this. This will sound familiar to you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As you'll recall, the county was allocated $700,000 from the state budget last year. The funds were not earmarked specifically in the legislation, but we were granted permission to use $100,000 of that $700,000 for the development of the Blues Lake Park. And then the other $600,000 was to be distributed in equal amounts of $200,000 to Rural Hall, Tobaccoville, and Walkertown. And so this item is appropriating the $600,000 because we've already done the $100,000 that we're using for the Blues Lake project. And then, so it's appropriating the $600,000 for those three towns, and it's also approving the interlocal agreement so that, again, so that those funds can be passed through to them as they complete their projects that they're going to be using for with this money. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you want to mention the projects, Kyle?
Sure.
Because we went through a little bit to try to assure that the projects that the towns proposed matched up with what Senator Kravick kind of had in her mind around appropriate use of these dollars. And so that took a little bit.
It did. And so Rural Hall is going to be using their $200,000. It's really for some design and pre-construction work for a new fire station in Rural Hall, I believe is what it was. And in Tobaccoville and Walkertown, Tobaccoville, it was a part of a larger park project that they're going to be using. There it is. I was looking for my the Town of Walkertown Town Center Park. It's a community meeting facility is what they're going to use their funds for. And then Tobaccoville was, again, like I said, a much larger kind of park project that they've had planned, and they're going to be, again, using those funds as matching funds for a part of grant, I believe, that they've received.
If I may.
Sure, go ahead.
It looks like Appendix A has, down in the fine print, a little bit of a laundry list for Tobaccoville. A trail system, a disc golf course, picnic shelter, an amphitheater, and a sand volleyball court. Are those the right ones?
That's it, yes. And so again, I mean, they're not going to use this money for all of those projects. It's really, that is a much larger project that they've had kind of in the pipeline, and so this work will go towards those projects. Yes.
That collection, right. It says bid package 1, bid package 2, et cetera. That looks like it's alternative language. How much can they get for the bucks they have?
And I think they were matching it up with a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant and some other resources. If you're familiar with that, they were able to acquire a piece of property that's kind of back up off of Spain-Hour Mill. If you know where their park is, it's actually on the road that kind of backs up to that, but it is contiguous to their existing park. So.
Yeah. And it's the one that's the most complicated to explain if somebody asks me, what's this money going to? But it's pretty clear that it's for this a project and potentially including those things. So.
That's right, and it really, these funds were really to be distributed to these towns and municipalities, at their not necessarily discretion, because the state office has to approve it, and they've seen these projects. They said okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to thank Kyle because he's serving as a grant administrator for the state of North Carolina in this, because we do have some grant administration requirements because the money did come to us, and so I appreciate Kyle doing that extra work. So we got some a grant item. You've got item 8 is a resolution authorizing submission of an application of awarded acceptance for a clean air grant from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Minor Barnett.
Good afternoon. It's good to see everyone. Today is not the first time that I've come to you seeking consideration for us to pursue federal funding to support some of the projects to benefit what we're doing here in the county, and hopefully today will not be the last time that I come with a similar request. So this federal funding is available through the Inflation Reduction Act and is being administered and distributed by the Environmental Protection Agency. They're calling it a Clean Air Act grant program. And it requires no local matching. And I think that it appears to me that the EPA staff are going to have some reasonably broad discretion on the types of projects that they can approve. So we've confirmed that we are an eligible recipient of these funds, and I think that the projects that we're planning to invest in are qualifying projects to be approved under this grant program. We'll find out soon. I would like to mention that this has been a very dynamic and changing environment that we've been communicating in, and the information has changed regularly, and I got some information this morning that was different than information I got on Tuesday, and that information was different than the information I based this agenda item on when I was drafting it 3 weeks ago. And I'll mention too, I want to bring it to your attention, I've shared with Ashley and Gordon and County Manager that when I submitted this into the system for approval 15 minutes before the deadline 3 Fridays ago, it had an error in it that I just caught at 1:30 today. And I've brought that to their attention, and we will correct that error. I hope it's a typographical error, but honestly, it might be a mathematical error, which I would be more embarrassed about. But I wanted to bring that to your attention, and we'll fix that before next Thursday.
I appreciate your work on it, Minor. You've been able to take advantage of some federal dollars, and these are good replacement equipments. And
you know, there's a lot more for us to dig into and look for.
Certainly safer and be able to monitor our work better. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Minor. All right, very good. Have some contracts. Item 9 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between Forsyth County and Professional Software for Nurses Incorporated for software licenses. Nicole Pretty.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The item before you is a resolution to enter into a contract with Professional Nursing Software for an electronic student health record management software program called SNAP. The contract is not to exceed $55,450 and is paid for entirely through funding made available to Forsyth County from North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. The software program will allow our school nurses to manage and maintain electronic health records of students and to provide more effective school health nursing services. I have with me today the School Health Program Supervisor, Brooke Hamby, and she and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Appreciate you doing that. Make it a little more, I'm assuming it improves the efficiency and probably speed, and that we're handling, being able to handle that, and help schools a lot.
Absolutely.
Very good. All right, thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
All right. Item 10 is a resolution approving the renewal of Laserfish document management subscription services from MIS and Joseph Sloop, although Gary Kuntz is on my list, but I presume you're going to fill in for Gary.
Sorry you got me today.
No, that's good.
So what you have before you today is our countywide document management solution. So that's the solution we use when we scan in documents to be able to archive and then research them and bring them back. It's the annual renewal. We went ahead and got a couple other bids with it just to show that we still are after the lowest bid for this solution. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I appreciate your pursuit of to see if there's something else out there for the distribution for that document screening tool. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. All right, Kirby has 2 items, item 11 and 12, both deal with the purchase of new tires. So,
Stuck in the chair.
Kirby is stuck in the chair. That is the first time that has happened in this room, I think, so.
Mr. County Manager, that happened to me once about a year and a half ago.
Okay, there you go.
Chair tried to eat my jacket.
That's exactly what just happened. It's very embarrassing.
Well, you got your general services guy. He's got to fix the chair, so fix
We'll
that.
look at that tonight. Yes, sir. So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. I'm sorry. I appreciate the opportunity to bring this item to you today. It's sort of a nuts and bolts business item for us. As background, General Services is responsible for maintaining the county's motor fleet on an uninterrupted basis. Right now, we've got about a 700 vehicle fleet. And as you can imagine, we drive quite a few miles, and that burns up quite a few tires during the year. Right now, we spend roughly $230,000 or so a year on tires. And over the past several years, we have used North Carolina State contract to purchase those tires, and really have found it to be competitive with a wide selection of prices. That's not always the case with state contract, but in this case, we find that it is. So this item requests permission to continue using that state contract and to make purchases up to $120,000 with 2 vendors that are authorized under that contract. Last year is 1 vendor. With the way that the commodity market is now, we need to have a little flexibility to be able to order from one if the other can't fulfill that order. Because it's a North Carolina State contract, the prices are fixed across the vendors. So we wouldn't be buying at different prices. So B-Roth, if they provide a certain type of tire, it's the same price as Parish Tire. But we do buy different brands from those providers. Our Pursuit tires come from one vendor, our non-emergency tires come from the other. So this contract, for your consideration, is proposed through fiscal '25. That's really subject to if the state contract remains active. Each year it's ready to expire and the state renews it. It's actually been in place since 2015. It's set to expire this May. We're pretty sure they're going to extend it again. So it's, again, those prices continue to carry forward. Eventually they will discontinue it because some of the tires are being discontinued in those lines. But that's sort of how a state contract goes sometimes. So in summary, this item authorizes annual purchases up to $120,000 with both B-Roth and Parish Tire under the terms of North Carolina State Contract number 863A through fiscal '25. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
I appreciate you answering the one question I had, which was why we're working with, why did we want to have contracts with both vendors? They're both different brands. I got it.
Yes, sir. We actually, last year it was just with B-Roth, and we switched our Pursuit tire. I think because sometimes the Firestone was either unavailable or a little more expensive. Right now we're dealing with Goodyear, and that's caused us to split some of our purchases, I believe.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions for Kirby?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirby. All right, you have two tax administration items, resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor collecting the amount of $1,027.28 and $1,403.25 from the Board of Equalization and Review. You've got reports, a February 2023 contribution-based benefit cap report, and then we do have two items that we have added. So, Mr. Chairman, what we have done in the past, if you read the policy specifically, it says that the board will actually take action to add items to the agenda, which you would do next week. You can do that just by consensus, however you want us to handle that. But we did have two items that were added. I think both of them make a ton of sense. Item 16 is a resolution approving a revision to the 2023 Juvenile Crime Prevention Council funding plan. After all the discussion we've had about how to maximize that funding, I think we've been super kind of hyper aware that we need to make sure and do that. So we did have this one coming in. Obviously, we got year in. Michaela Westbrook is going to come up and talk just a little bit about what this revision looks like. And it really is a function, I think, of JCPC really monitoring the applicants and the awardees really carefully to make sure we're doing it. So.
Good afternoon, everybody. So this is a resolution to take $35,726 that was returned from two programs and to reallocate them for other programs to use. It'll be 5 programs that are receiving funds to do additional projects, and one program does include an additional cash match of $5,353 from Forsyth County to be used from our gun and gang violence funds that have been budgeted in the reserve. And I'll answer any questions if there are any.
When I looked at the chart that was at the end of that attachment, it would have probably been helpful to just show each one of the, because I assume the chart that we saw included the changes.
Correct.
It would have been helpful to see the sort of the debit and credit, sort of the takeaway and the add-on, and if there was new agencies, it would have just been clear about, because it would have reflected the changes from the original approval on the same form.
Okay.
And I think that could have been helpful to just, because when I looked at that, I said, I actually had to go back and say, well, this was on the chart, so was it a part of the, and well, yeah, this is one of the new add-on agencies and what they're getting. It would just been a more user-friendly chart to track changes. And I take it that this is a change from the process, the way we've been doing business, so that we're capturing this sooner and getting the dollars reallocated to reuse. Because I don't remember us doing that before.
We do this almost every year. The problem is that even with these changes, there may be organizations such as the one that do the home and the psychological assessments that even though they're not returning money, we may end up still having to revert to the state at the end. But we do this every year.
Well, I understand
in the chart that's in there, just so you know, that is a state form, but certainly next time Ms. Westbrook can kind of add our own spreadsheet just so you can see the difference. So we will take note of that.
Well, my memory before, which can clearly be incorrect. I'll qualify that. It was that essentially we rarely had time to do some reallocations. I know we've done I just, maybe you're bringing it to us to show us the reallocation, but no, I see you're shaking your head. So, but I just don't remember. I don't remember those kind of, we have 35,000 left over, and this is what we did. We divided to the couple of different ones. These guys did this, and these guys, I just don't remember that before. I know you told us.
Right, we do typically do it, but it is, the problem has been that it is much earlier than June 30th, right? So today's April 13th.
Yes.
It's going to get approved
there's
at the
time to
next
get-
meeting. And so there's kind of this time lag of 2 months that you're still kind of trying to figure out, is it going to completely balance at the end?
Well, I understand that. I
But we
understand that
do
part.
this process when programs have dollars that they think they're going to revert.
And you always did it a couple months before?
This is because of the state's timing. The state has to have this by May 1st of each year.
Never mind. So you're doing nothing any different?
That is correct.
Okay. So we don't have a process improvement to make it better. It's just we hope this will make it better.
Well, really, I think what we need to advocate truly is for the state to change their date. I feel like we would get to a much better place in terms of reversions and balancing if the state would push back their date beyond the May 1st date. That would certainly be an action for us to see if that would be possible.
Okay, thanks.
Chairman, if I may, I wanted to tell Ms. Westbrook, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I say it 3 times because I hate to see monies going back, knowing the issues that transpire in our community. So I appreciate you finding the department finding ways to support others in this capacity. So thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
This is probably a stupid technical question, but in the list of projects, one of them is Children's Center of Surrey, Inc. They have a facility located in Forsyth County.
The Surrey County,
No, this is a particular group home that takes the highest risk individuals, and they are located in Surrey County.
Okay, so, but, we have folks from Forsyth being housed at.
Absolutely,
okay.
yes, sir.
Thank you. Nothing against, good money going to the good folks of Surrey County. I just
Understand, we do try local, but unfortunately, we don't have enough facilities.
Thank you.
Very good. And then the other added item is item 17, which is just a resolution recognizing April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and folks from DSS will be here to receive that as well next Thursday. So, Mr. Chairman, it's a little more straightforward day. So
Amazing.
It is amazing. The only other item I have that I just wanted to mention is we do, not next Thursday, but in 2 weeks from today, we'll be in one of our bi-monthly morning sessions, and that is a time where we hear some presentations and just gather information and have a little more time, and we don't bog down the meeting. And so you've got a rough agenda of where we are. Basically, what we've got so far is sort of the regular periodic updates from the schools, Forsyth Tech, partners, planning does theirs. Does that sound right, Chris? You're shaking your head, kind of. We did one, I guess, 2 months ago. So anyway, we'll see where that is. ARPA update, which we tried to do periodically in these sessions. And then really the meat of this one is I thought it would make some sense, particularly as we're heading into budget. We've got a lot of capital projects underway, and have general services come in and really review those projects, where we are with them. Some of them are very visible, like the courthouse, the airport terminal, airport improvements out there. But we've also got some others that are not as visible to you, and kind of let you know where we are with those. And so we'll spend some time. And then, frankly, anything else, we'll be finalizing this agenda next Thursday. If there's something that you want to have some time to talk about in a session where you're not jammed up with other regular kind of agenda items, we do this kind of before the lunch on Thursday, and before the regular meeting or before the briefing. Let us know when we kind of work through that.
Let me ask Chris a question. Would it be possible, Chris, to give an update on sort of if there's been any more thinking on the sewer possibilities for the future? Sewer expansion kind of issues? If additional dollars were to be in the state budget for that, for us, like the where it might go. We've had some general discussion. I know we had a lot of
So you're talking about in relation to the
expansion, sewer expansion.
Yeah, the winter retreat that we had where Kyle, again, nothing, we have been on some calls ourselves. I know there's been some other things going on kind of behind the scenes between the city and the county and utilities. I don't know that I would be prepared to talk about that, but Kyle and, maybe the team could be. I don't have any other updates besides what we talked about then, and we came back and then talked about we probably need to engage some consulting work, but beyond that, there hasn't been any additional discussions.
Okay, yeah, well, I guess I'd like to maybe encourage we revisit where it is and what might we need to be doing to see that some of that work who maybe needs to be engaged to do some of that work.
Yeah, I think the Utility Commission they were actively working on identification of what the logical sewer sheds would be if you were to expand that system. And so I will, we'll see if we're not ready for at least some preliminary information around that. Frankly, just showing where sewer is currently provided and what, just sort of that information might be helpful. But I know they've made some progress. I know they've been meeting on it, so we'll see.
Yeah, and I think the issue of development has to if you just expand the sewer and are not sort of locking down some potential economic development, having like a small business park or bigger or whatever, then other people will be buying it and going. I mean, we have to be doing two things simultaneously. That point was made in our winter workshop, which I thought was right on target, and that may require a different kind of developer consultant work to see that something is happening simultaneously as we look at that. But I mean, I'm optimistic we're going to get some money in that, and I just want us to be prepared to respond if we get it.
Yeah, it sounds like, Chris, you don't have a whole lot else in your regular general planning update to do, because we really did that not too terribly long ago. Maybe we'll try to turn the focus of this one a little more on where you're going with that.
And I'll certainly reach out to Kyle and Laura and Courtney and kind of see if we can pull together an update on kind of like where we are and where we need to go.
Great. All right. Good. Very good. Only other item I have is just closed session motion whenever you're ready, Mr. Chairman.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, well, I need to ask board to consider.
I'll make the motion that you read.
Got it, all right. I need to ask board to consider a motion to go into closed session to discuss one matter to consult with the attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged pursuant to provisions of North Carolina General Statute 143, 31811A3. Since there's no other business will come before the board at this meeting, following closed session, the meeting will be adjourned.
I'll second the motion. Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
All right.